James, we are
100% live.
We are live. It's
Live.
Valentine's Day, James.
It is.
Mr. Romance. You're a romantic kind of guy?
I'd like to think so, mate. I guess
Yeah,
you'd have to ask my wife.
You look like a romantic type of soppy guy, don't you? You got that soppy look. I wouldn't say I'm a romantic guy, James.
Well, define the look. What is the look of a romantic guy?
Just kind, empathetic, tries a little bit too hard.
Oh, you almost had it.
I was being so nice then, wasn't I? So nice. I don't try hard enough. I think I'm on the opposite spectrum.
Right. Let's unpack that then.
Let's unpack that because it's all about Valentine's Day today, guys. We're going to cover relationships, dating, divorce, romance, sex. What is Valentine's Day? Apparently Valentine's Day, something about some execution and this it's a Christian thing, isn't it? Valentine's Day. I've got it up here.
Have you got the details? I've never thought about it outside of any definition apart from the fact that it's a way of making money for card companies, florists, and restaurants and chocolate.
Oh, we've commodified pretty much everything, haven't we? You sort of you'll charge a nan for a conversation soon, won't we? It'll be that bad. Nan, you want to talk on the phone? Well, that's going to be,
rent a grandmother. That might be a thing.
Jesus, that's a different website. Rent a grandmother. Yeah, James. Steer clear of that.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Christian feast day honoring Saint Valentine. Apparently, this is what it's from. Something about these two executions, and then it's probably like Saint Nicholas and Christmas, isn't it? Somehow somebody's got hold of it and thought, there's a business
tenuous, a tenuous link, isn't it? Going from execution to showing how much you love somebody.
Yeah.
Or the two intrinsically connected.
Yeah. Well, marriage is like a death. It's like a death sentence, isn't it? Marriage.
God. Oh, you're so predictable. Just teed that one up.
You
just teed it up and you knock it out the park.
So apparently, James, 60% of young men under 30 are single. And they're not even mingling. They're single and no mingle. What's going on with these young guys? And apparently it says 90% of that, well, it says 76% to 87%. I don't know where they get these statistics from, but
don't start me on statistics.
They're all watching porn, basically. They've given up on women. They've given up on women and dating, and they've just headed to the porn sites.
Right.
What's going on with these young men? Because we also see some research on the decline of testosterone over the decades. So is this all combined? Why is the young men not meeting young ladies and having sexual relations, as Bill Clinton would say?
Only Bill Clinton ever said that.
It was
no other no other person in the world ever said, I'm not having sexual relations with that woman.
Yeah. Imagine going on a date. You just say, I'm just going to let you know there's going to be no sexual relations tonight.
Yeah.
It's too early for us.
Yeah. Just make that abundantly clear at this stage.
Yeah.
What was your question?
So before we get to the romance, let's talk about the people who are absent in the whole romance circle. There seems to be a lot of them. It says sexual intimacy is at a 30-year low. Testosterone's dropping in young men decade on decade. So we're just basically becoming women.
Okay, so let's go into the stats then. So where are those stats coming from? Who's conducted this study? How exhaustive is it?
It's from the John Hastings
Academy.
Academia. Yeah. Let me see where these are coming from. Psychology Today. Is that a good one?
Don't know.
Peerviewresearch.org. enwikipedia.org. So, yeah,
I mean, I think I'd be more.
Yeah,
I would be more inclined to look at the fact that global population is reducing. So I guess that would be an indicator, wouldn't it? The people that are having less children, whether
the
that
global
relates
population is
to.
not reducing, James. It's increasing.
I don't mean no. I didn't mean reducing. It's flatlined. It's not growing at the rate in which it was predicted to grow. I think we're looking at.
I think it's still growing. It's Western birth rates are dropping, but there's other countries that are propping that up.
Right.
Nigerians are smashing them out. They're gonna that population is gonna be bigger than the US. Nigeria population will be bigger than the US in like the next 20 years or something.
Okay.
Which is crazy. Okay. You think Nigeria just looks tiny on a map, but I know the maps are apparently. Have you been to that website where it shows you the maps of the world, but the real actual dimensions where you can place Africa across Europe on this website? And you realize that all of the dimensions that we know are completely off. Africa's like the size of Europe. It's huge. It's crazy. But on the map, it just looks kind of small. England, UK is very small. So those dimensions.
I have to admit, of not having visited that site, I will have to check it out.
Yeah, because you're too busy on other sites, James, aren't you?
I'm too busy on other sites that are much more educational, but that is educational. So going back to your point, why do I think that, again, if those statistics are true, and I'll reserve judgment on that around relationships, and I guess we can comment around how much of interaction has gone online, taken the place of face-to-face. We had this conversation, didn't we, the other day about online dating and getting a snapshot of an individual, talking to them online. They can kind of be whoever they want to be.
You've never done online dating, have you, James? You're a complete.
But it's not my generation.
This is a hypothetical for you.
Totally.
So let everyone know, how long have you been married, James?
27 years.
And you got together when you was
23.
Okay, so you've been in a proper committed relationship from a young
22
age,
actually. Ness was 21. It was on her 21st birthday. I was 22.
Yeah, and how did you meet?
It was young. TGI Fridays. I was a bartender.
Talk us through it. Talk us through the whole scenario. Let me into exactly what happened.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this? So I was a TGI Fridays flair cocktail bartender.
I can see that, James. I can see the cocktail.
If I had a Collins glass now, I could take it, flick it over my back, catch it behind my back. So I could
all the tricks, yeah?
I could spin it, roll it down the arm there. I could spin a bottle around my thumb.
Yeah. I can see you in that job, James. That's like an ideal job for you, isn't it? Bit social. You can show off a little bit.
It was tremendous.
Bit of attention from the ladies.
Yeah. So anyway, Ness was engaged to be married to a guy I was working with at the time. Dude, this is
James. You are a dark horse, aren't you, James? I don't know this story, by the way.
You don't know this story. We haven't gotten to that stage in our relationship, mate, have we? But I was dressed. It was Halloween. I was dressed as Beetlejuice.
Nice.
And this amazing, wonderful, beautiful, kind, glorious lady walked into the bar and we were having a conversation. I didn't know who she was at the time, and she didn't know what I looked like because I was covered in makeup, had a green wig, stripy suit. Very, very.
And you had hair back then, James, didn't you?
I had hair back then.
Long hair.
Hair back then. Long, flowing locks.
We have to get a picture of that, James. I'll
find one.
Throw it up. Yeah,
I'll hook one out. So yeah, look very different. And yeah, long story short, we connected then.
Don't skip that beat. Don't skip that bit, James. What was it? Did she come to the bar?
Our first kiss on her 21st birthday. And then the next day,
how did you get talking? How did you get that interaction going? She asked for a drink.
Yeah, but because she was, I mean, at the time she was, like I said, with a guy that I was working with, they were engaged to be married. So we all kind of knocked around as a friendship group. And then, yeah, it just kind of developed.
And you sort of ruined this guy's life. This guy's never been the same since.
Yeah. He was quite unhappy, to be fair.
Okay, James, I'm going to watch my wife around you. Interesting. You are the wife snatcher, my man.
The wife snatcher. But yeah, it was like.
So are you still friends with a guy, or?
No. He came round actually. I had a phone call. There was a mutual friend of ours phoned me up and said, "Oh, he's not happy. He's coming around with a baseball bat." I was like, okay. So I waited in for him to come round, and he came round, and
this kind of guy wanted to play baseball.
He just wanted to play baseball. That was not what I thought it was going to be at all. That he just I brought a catcher mitt and a ball.
He wanted to connect.
He wanted to have a little knockabout.
Yeah.
So and we exchanged some words, and he kind of offered me out to the car park, and I said, okay, I'll follow you. And
you shit yourself, and that was it.
It was an interesting, and that was it. Never happened. It never came to blows, and here we are today, 27 years later.
Yeah, 3 kids, 27 years later. It is amazing how these things can develop, isn't it? Really.
It's hard work. It's hard work, but the rewards are incredible. If you can get through those times. And,
James, you don't have to lie on here. You don't have to lie.
In all seriousness, if you can get through that stuff, if you can get through the hard stuff and the ups and the downs, then...
We can see the tears in your eyes, James.
I've been paid to say
fun. This. I promise.
I'm under duress. If I get a lipstick out and I write it on the mirror behind me that I'm being held captive.
Help. Yeah. It's it's a weird one with the relationships, because you're a different person, every say 5-10 years, aren't you? You're not who you are when you're 21 years old to you're 31, are you? You are growing, developing. You can either, sometimes you grow together, you grow apart, you have phases where you're closer, maybe phases where you're, further apart. And then you add children into the mix, and it just completely changes that dynamics.
Changes everything.
Yeah, you add, and what relationships do, James, they're such a mirror for who you are and all of your childhood traumas, aren't they? They are reflecting back who you are. That's why so many people will struggle in relationships, because it is a constant mirror, and you're sort of having to try to figure yourselves out and connect with each other and balance things out. And it can be, it's a tricky ride, isn't it?
Well, you hear it a lot, don't you? It's like going from one mother to another.
I've never heard that before, James. That must be in your friendship group.
Yes, you have.
You should not be going from one mother to another. I don't recommend that. Only in Southampton do they do that.
Mate, this is not going the way I thought it was going to go at all.
What the hell are you guys doing down in Southampton? There's just not enough things to do, is there? guys, do not go from one mother to another. Just try to stick with one, and
well, you're my brother from another mother, right? That just got
try
weird
and
very quickly.
See it out. But yeah, it is, and romance evolves, doesn't it? You change. You can become in long-term relationships. You can become a little bit complacent as well, can't you? Sometimes you go through phases. You get used to each other. You stop trying. At the beginning, your wife's like dressing up, looking good, and now she's wearing her slogs and doesn't care anymore. That's not my wife, by the way, but and the guy's overweight and he's lost his self, and he's these things can happen.
Such a dystopian picture.
Yeah, this is meant to be a romantic talk.
So,
James,
well, let's go back to that statement right at the beginning. You said you're not romantic. Why? What formulates that opinion that you're not romantic? Or is that just an identity that you have for yourself, that you're not romantic?
Yeah, I don't see myself as the guy who. Maybe I'm just a selfish bastard. Maybe I'm just.
Well, I bet you do stuff though that actually, when you unpack it, is quite sweet, isn't it? It may not be the whole hearts and flowers and all that sort of overblown gestures and all that sort of shit, but I reckon underneath it all, you do stuff.
I'm a loyal guy. What I am. I don't judge. This might sound strange, but I don't judge people who have cheated and stuff. I know this thing goes on all the time. People probably feel a lot of guilt and shame, and there's a lot of context to people that have been in relationships and cheated. I'm not going to judge them, but I've never cheated on a partner. Maybe that's unusual. I don't know. So I probably loyalty and commitment. It's probably because I'm very bad at lying, I would say. That's probably why I've never cheated, because I'm not great. I couldn't live two lives. I normally have to say, when I don't like something, I have to say it, to be one person out and then come home. It
must be exhausting. It must be exhausting.
How do you do it, James? How do you do it?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't do it. I don't do it.
We've got a question here. Daniel Hamilton Charlton. Let's bring Daniel Hamilton Charlton's question up straight away. We love a question. Welcome, Daniel. So the stronger the relationship, the less you should have to go out of your way to impress. Give me comfy clothes and a crash on the sofa with a bit of trash telly. Yeah, it is. I like that from Daniel. I like that relax with. When my wife and I, it's very much like that. It's a very, maybe she's just got low expectations or low standards, but we can just chill, and it is the best time. I'm with Daniel. Get a nice packet of crisps. Get on the TV.
Full disclosure full disclosure. Dan was the best man at my wedding. So love you, Dan. Yeah. Thanks for the comment, mate. But
excellent.
Yeah. So listen, I think you reach a point where you're just comfortable with each other, and that's not complacency. Don't confuse the two. I think being comfortable with each other and reaching a point where actually you don't need to talk all the time. And from my background of not talking at all, to then being comfortable enough not to talk is very different, because mine would be shut down emotionally as opposed to just being comfortable to sit with the silence and for that to be okay.
Yeah.
But the point we're at now is that we're comfortable with the silence and we don't have to talk. There's not that intensity of like, we need to talk. It's actually, we do talk, and we talk now regularly, so that we can have those comfortable silences and just.
Who are you talking about, James? You're talking about me and you. You talk about you and your wife.
We're getting to that point, you and me. We're not there yet, mate. We're not there yet.
Or are you talking about you and Daniel? Which one is it?
Oh, me and Dan.
Daniel's put up here 25 years married to my best female friend.
Yeah.
That's nice, isn't it? 25 years is a long stint. And then he said, I love you, James.
Oh, listen. Love you, man. But Dan, I've known Dan since he was 3 and I was 4.
Yeah.
We went to school together.
Yeah. And, another wife snatcher? Dan?
No.
Was he out there? Was you part of this gang? Was you like wife snatching? You guys?
No.
I know you guys in Southampton, little groups.
Mate, you can't tar us with the same brush as you London folk. I think there's some projection here, mate. I think there's some
Someone said that to me on LinkedIn the other day. It's called transference, apparently.
Exactly right.
Yeah, when you
project onto somebody else. Very true. Very true.
And I said this transference, you telling me it's transference. I batted it back. I bought the baseball bat with that one.
Did you? Yeah.
I tried to.
Back at you, mate.
But you're right, James. You're
I'm always right, mate. So the sooner you realise that, the better.
You're always right, James. Daniel said, he said, no, one mum was enough for me.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But I said, so yeah, you've been married for a long time, three kids, you have your ups and downs, but have you had to keep the romance alive over the years? You know, are you still romantic? Do you find it an effort, James, or are you a natural romantic? For me, maybe romance was never modeled, you know. Because my dad left me.
Left you
when my dad left me when I was a young boy, so I never actually modeled any
of that kind of behavior. So where did you get your cues from as how to operate in the world as a man? Where did you get that from?
Porn. I reckon it was from porn. Maybe it was from just the VHS porn videos that were going around at college, and that's probably where I learned all my skills, which is not saying much. But who did I model? I don't think I modeled. No, actually, that's a lie. I modeled probably my nan and granddad. My nan was more like the alpha, sitting there, arthritis, hands like this, smoking those silk cut cigarettes 24/7. And my granddad was just a very jolly man, big belly, fishing, always watching the horse racing, just always doing something, whether he's fixing a radio or he's doing something. And my nan's just sitting in a chair shouting at him, basically. But there was so much love, respect. When my nan died, it literally took his soul. You know what I mean? They was together for nearly 80 years and he was gone. She was just everything to him, everything he did. He had 3 daughters, my mum, my 2 aunties, and his life was just full of women, wasn't it? His wife and his 3 daughters. So he was, that was his thing. So that's who that's who I modeled, I would say. Probably that type of, what would I say, loyalty, commitment, because it was back in that day, James, it's more common, isn't it, for couples to stay together. I know that's not always a good thing because women,
I guess it weren't the options, were there? I think sort of being upwardly mobile and the options just weren't there, were they? I think, and society was much more stringent, and I think they would be more judgmental around that, as opposed to now. I think it's been much more normalized, and whether that's impacted on how much effort people put in. But I think this is okay. So answer me this then. I've got this thing around a couple that stay together because of the children. and have a loveless marriage, and the children grow up in a loveless marriage, but they stay together in their eyes for the benefit and to keep that family unit together. But there's apathy, there's distance, there's a void between the parents, which the children will inevitably pick up on. So is it better for them to stay together? And this is an impossible question, but just to get your perspective
I'll answer it, James.
For the parents to stay together in a loveless marriage, but not have that upheaval of separation, the children then having to go between two households, or then potentially cope with another parent, a stepfather or a stepmother or boyfriend, whatever situation being thrown into the mix. It's an interesting conundrum, isn't it?
It's difficult. Yeah, I think I watched Jordan Peterson clip the other day talking about it, and he was basically saying, look, it's not good to get divorced. It's like things are not statistically better after people get divorced. But I know people in sexless marriages and in exactly the same position that you're talking about, where there's a massive disconnect in there. And I would say, potentially, what are the children modeling in that? What are they observing? Because even though you can try to hide it, the atmosphere is going to be awful, isn't it? They're going to be observing, this is what love is, this is what a relationship is. And you think you're helping them, but you're just teaching them, how to model disconnection. So I think if you've got two partners, normally, I would, in a simple terms, you could have a growth or a fixed mindset. This is on a very big spectrum, but some people are just very sort of growth orientated, like they want to improve, they're open to learning, they're open to developing. And there is other people who are very closed. They don't want to enter that space of self-development. They don't want to enter the big questions, probably because they're just too scared to do so. So if you have that one growth, one fixed, then I would say it's probably a time thing. You can always, reach out to that person to try and open up and grow. But eventually you'll probably just reach a threshold where you think, man, this is not good, because you could leave that relationship, enter another relationship, and it could be completely different. The children could have the best of both worlds. They can see you, they could see dad, having a very loving connection with his partner, just the simple stuff, the way they talk to each other, the way they give each other a kiss, the way they hold hands when they're out. But when you see disconnected relationships, and I've seen a lot of them, and you think to yourself, wow, you've been miserable for years. And you can see it on people's faces when they hit 60, 70. They look about 110, don't they? It's like, gee, it wasn't a heroic thing to stay together. It was probably more fear. And maybe you should have got out, to be honest, because but again, I think maybe nowadays people can jump too early. As soon as it gets tough, you miss the self-development stage of, trying to develop together. And they just, because it's possibly easier, not always, it depends what your individual circumstances are. Obviously, finances play a huge part. If you've got family and things like that, you can maybe easily, get out of that relationship. Some people just can't. They just can't financially. I know people that have actually split up and they're living in the same house. So I used to run like a divorced dads group with about like 120 guys in there. So I heard all of the stories about what it can be like. And it can be difficult, James.
What were the common threads, would you say? What was the commonalities between all of them? What were they all experiencing that seemed to have a kind of a run all the way through?
A commonality between all of them was I think probably the commonality was external environmental pressures that have put sort of unnatural, circumstances together within the relationship. So I think it was more of a, both parties are now potentially having to work full time. Okay. So you're living like separate lives. The expectations start to change, and you're under more pressure. The children are potentially being brought up by somebody else. A lot of families now, like we've spoke about this before, especially sort of traditional English families, the children are moving away. So they're not close to their parents sometimes. So you haven't got that support network or community. A lot of women bringing up children in isolated situations, which definitely changes the dynamics for them. So I would say the sort of external developments of the modern world would be one of the big factors. And then the fact that, people can meet other people easier, now with the apps, it's easier to then fall into that, maybe stray. And when you're under pressure like this, I think people are more inclined, even with the health side, they're more inclined to sort of eat sugar. They're more inclined to drink alcohol. They're more inclined to have, quick sex, because it's sort of like a release from
becomes a bit perfunctory.
Yeah, the pain of facing the truth or a problem is hard. That's why sometimes you're trying to, drop the grenade by having some type of affair or doing something, because then you don't have to actually just face it truthfully. You've basically just self-sabotaged, which is potentially easier than having a conversation to say, look, it's too much, it's too hard to have the conversation. So it's easier to go and stray somewhere else. So I think the environmental factors,
which is absolutely incredible. You think about what people will do in terms of self-harm. We're talking about suicide, having affairs, that self-sabotage, that they would rather do that than to actually face the demons that are going on, the pain that's underneath. They would rather end their lives or destroy somebody else's life and children's lives potentially as well, as opposed to addressing those underlying problems that are causing the issues. Because a lot of that stuff that you're describing is extrinsic. It's like we've all got pressures. Life is tricky. It's survival, all of those kind of things going on. The surface, those are elements that are bombarding us on a daily basis. And absolutely, they will cause problems. But I think if you are strong together, or you have your own emotions addressed, and you've looked at all the issues that you have in terms of your personality, that there's that ability to communicate with your partner, that you're not then in that situation where you're going to an extreme of behavior, that you can be more of a partnership and talk to each other about it and help each other through, if you're managing your own emotions and not each other's emotions.
Yeah.
All the time you feel responsible for somebody else's emotion and relationship, and I'm speaking personally, that it's really hard to navigate, and it's hard to see a way through if you are making yourself responsible for the other person's emotions. They have to be responsible for their own, and you have to be responsible for yours. And once you've come to an understanding around it, that you've done the work on yourself individually, that you can then come back together and go, well, I knew that wasn't all your fault, and that was something that was in me that was triggering me, that made me react in that way. And vice versa. And you can say, well, actually, I can see that my behavior, shutting down, would make you feel insecure, that made me feel like I wasn't listening to you when you were talking. I completely understand that. But it's like these two magnets that were coming each other, and they're the same sort of poles that you're then sort of pushing each other away, that you're not actually attracting in the middle because of this situation of reacting to each other. And one would say one thing and then you'd react, and then you just go in this loop, this spiral.
Yeah.
So until that deadlock is broken, then very likely you'll continue going through. And I think it gets to a point where you just can't do it anymore. And then you separate, because you cannot, for the life of you, see a future where you're ever going to have that bond back again that you had when you first got together. I mean, that sort of honeymoon period of, where the sex was great and there weren't the kids there necessarily. And it was just about the two of you and getting to know each other and exploring each other and, what you liked, what you didn't like, and everything was new. And you had this kind of childlike wonder about the world together, experiencing stuff. And then all of a sudden you kind of seen everything that you were going to see and learned everything you were going to learn. And all those experiences were common, and it didn't have that same spark as it did at the beginning. And you can't realistically expect that to continue forever, but you can reignite bits of it. You can move into a new phase of experience.
It evolves,
it can
doesn't
be
it,
even
James?
better. It can be even more meaningful and deeper than it was.
It can be different. I don't know if you can ever get back those first honeymoon stages. I don't think you recreate those.
You can create something even more meaningful, but it takes a lot of work. It takes a shitload of work.
So we talked yesterday about the Gottman Institute, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So if you're experiencing them in any relationship, that's probably going to dampen the romance. So it was, criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So if you see those creep into your relationship, then that's when things go a bit Pete Tong.
Pear-shaped.
Yeah, you got to be, and some people are just not aware of it, especially, I'm not going to say especially women, I'll say both men and women are not aware of those things at all. And they don't realize how toxic that can be to a relationship.
Well, how many times would you have had a conversation with a guy and he will have said, I just never saw it coming. I just completely blindsided me. I didn't know there was anything wrong. I didn't know there was an issue. I didn't know my behavior was making her feel that way or him feel that way.
Yeah.
And just total kind of like bemusement around how this has happened. I feel completely shocked by this thing and that they're sort of stood there going, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. Why is that? Why is there such a lack of awareness and that communication thing that actually we are being told these things, but it's being told in a way that doesn't then make us shut down and be defensive and say, well, I'm out earning money, or, what do you want from me? I'm doing this, and that's still not enough. That it's not necessarily about these overblown gestures and buying stuff and, going on trips and things, which are all nice. But if that's at the detriment to the connection with that individual, you're just papering over the cracks. And those are the things, because we see the stuff of creating solutions to problems.
Yeah.
And that is at the core of our identity. That's what we do as men, is we problem solve. And it's not about that. It's not about that. And it's about this sort of, just being in the moment, being present. And it's not enough to, go out and provide and be the strong person, be the stability, be the rock, all those kind of things. It's so much more nuanced than that.
It's definitely, relationships are not just, two people. It's community, it's purpose and meaning in your work. It's, it's so much more. We put it down to just 2 individuals and look at it in a microcosm, don't we, at the moment? In modern day life, it's like individual, when really there's a much bigger context to romance and relationships. The 2 people are just right at the center of this massive whirlwind that's going on. So you can see easily how, things can develop and things can move in different directions, can't you, on that side? But in terms, there's like 5 apparently on here, James. We've got 5 love languages. I don't know if you've ever heard of the love languages before.
I have.
So we've got
only through the therapy, couples therapy. I wasn't aware of them before.
Yeah, let's see what your love language is, and then I'll tell my story of meeting I've been divorced once, and I'll tell the story of meeting my beautiful new wife. That sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? New wife.
Just sit with
my wife. This is my new wife. She is good. She like cook food. Yeah.
Makes me lots of cup of tea.
I do love a cup of tea. So the 5 love languages. Let's see which one you use, James. So we've got words of affirmation, expressing love.
I'll tell you what mine is before you read them out. So mine is acts of service.
Oh, interesting. I don't even know what these are yet. So that's number 2 on there. So number 1 was words of affirmation, expressing love through spoken or written words of appreciation, encouragement, and compliments. Example: I appreciate you. You look great today. I'm proud of you. That's words of affirmations. That could be a love language. So what's the thing about these love languages? Is it like
it's understanding each other. So if you're constantly going in with acts of service and that's not what is received,
that's not their vibe,
you can't receive that. You can't it's and that's what I was saying about these kind of things of like just doing instead of being. If I'm there just kind of making cups of tea or making dinner or doing those kind of things, and I think that is placating and making me more endearing, etc., that I'm showing my love by doing those kind of things. If that's not being received, if we don't have that connection, if we're not connecting on the level that we need to be connecting at, those are just spurious. That's just like mechanical. So what I need to be aware of is what, Ness's love languages are.
What's Ness's?
That's very much about spending time together, and nothing.
Quality time,
It's quality time. It's quality time. So like going out for a walk in nature, just being the 2 of us, having a chat, taking the dog for a walk, and being in the moment of not thinking about other stuff and then not being able to communicate or being distracted. It's actually just appreciating being with each other. And it's taken me a ridiculous amount of time to figure it out. But until you know the dynamic, you just keep doing the same behaviors and getting the same results.
Why is it taking you so long, James? I could have told you that yesterday.
Well, why didn't you then?
You should have come to me, James.
If only. Damn you, Hastings, if only I knew.
You just wasted 30 years.
Yeah.
So we got words.
You do it at the time that's right for you. I think, you kind of arrive at these moments when you're supposed to. Some people never do. Some people never do.
And they never do, James. They never learn. They never seek any sort of development outside of themselves.
And that is tragic. That is tragic because literally you can be on a knife edge and it can be a decision based on that you go one way or you go the other. And I just count myself incredibly lucky and I'm incredibly appreciative.
Acts of service then. So yours is showing love by doing helpful things for your partner. Example, cooking a meal, running errands, helping with chores.
Yeah. But I'm relearning that. So that still is integral to me. That doesn't change. That's okay. I still do that stuff, but I know that isn't the be all and the end all. And that is not just doing the base level. That is something that I do anyway.
Yeah.
It's the connection that's really important.
So number 3, receiving gifts, feeling loved through thoughtful presence or gestures. I think this is my wife receiving gifts, and I don't really do gifts. which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's not my love language, James.
There you go.
Example, a surprise bouquet, a meaningful handwritten note, although I have bought flowers today and written a nice little note as well.
Okay.
Number 4, quality time, giving undivided attention, spending meaningful time together. So you said that's more your wife's vibe, isn't it, James?
Yeah.
Quality time. And then physical touch, feeling loved through physical affection. Example, hugs, kisses, holding hands. So can you have more than one love language, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can have a combination of all of them. Now, it gets a little bit
It seems a bit.
It doesn't have to be one specific one, but I know that one of them was kind of an overriding thing. But so things that I want for myself, so the love language that I would want from my partner, for example, you know, I'm very tactile, so I need that. You know, I need the hugs, I need the kisses, I need that time. And we went through a period of not having that. And now there's a real emphasis of Ness understanding that that's what I need. So
you need a hug, you know, James. Is that
she knows when I need a hug? She knows when I need a hug now, and we will hug it out.
Okay.
And it's not just a like, and then done. This is a proper.
Yeah.
And just, you know, hold.
I always like a naked hug. It always works for me.
Mate, who doesn't?
It's just the
some people don't. Some people get very uncomfortable. I know guys that get uncomfortable with physical contact.
Seriously?
With naked hugs.
With naked hugs especially, they do. Daniel's put a post up here. Being selfless is great in a relationship so long as you don't overlook your own needs. Something I am challenged by. That's a good point, Daniel, actually. Some people are too busy, you know, focusing on other people, and you got to have your own independence as well. I think there's something with the Esther Perel stuff. Have you heard of Esther Perel? And she says something about desire. You can't desire what you've already got. So maybe you need to hold a bit of yourself and your independence because it's attractive, isn't it? It's like absence makes the heart fonder type of thing.
It brings me back to that thing of being responsible for your own emotions.
Yeah.
And, you know, that then allows you to say what you want. You know, for a long time, I would just placate, I would do, you know, and I wouldn't say what I needed because I didn't have the voice to do it, because I felt like, you know, I wasn't, I felt like I wasn't worthy of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to it is the feeling of worthiness that you are able to ask for what you want. So like now I can go like, you know, I need a hug, or I can say, actually, you know, I'm not great today. I'm not feeling, you know, and then, but it's that the openness and being able to communicate with that with your partner is absolutely key. I think there was, just trying to think who it was, that sort of they use like a percentage of where you're at energy wise. So like if you come home and say, look, I've got about 20%, you know that you're low in energy, you know that you've not got a lot to give. And maybe your partner's at sort of 30, 40%. So they can say, well, I'm at about a 40.
Yeah.
So you kind of know where you're at. So it's not like this, well, I'm going to keep that to myself. I'm not going to say because I'm supposed to be upbeat. I'm supposed to be whatever. But actually, if you don't have it, that's going to come across. And the way that it will come across
that's when you have like a half naked hug where you just basically keep your trousers on.
Just keep your trousers on.
Yeah,
or maybe just your socks.
How you feel.
Is that attractive? Maybe your socks and a hat.
Just say, I'm 50% today. I'm keeping my trousers on here.
Don't go getting any ideas for our live workouts, mate. I don't want to see at 7:15 in the morning just the socks and the hat. Unless there's a strategic position of a sock.
Yeah, but these things are very fascinating. These are like learning about relationships. I think they should bring it into schools. I think it would be quite helpful, but also interesting. Obviously, I've been divorced before.
Yeah.
Maybe there was talk that I was not that affectionate a little bit, cold in some respects. Maybe I showed love in different ways. Loyalty maybe is one of those other love languages. I'm not sure which one. But with my new wife now, the dynamics are so much different. I don't think it's that I've learned a lesson. It's just that the dynamics are different. So I feel more loving. Maybe because, first of all, I was in a more of a feminine position and the woman was more in a masculine position. And now it's the roles reversed. And now I'm showing more affection more naturally. It's not like I'm trying. It's not like a tick box of, this is where some of this self-development stuff can become a little bit mechanical. It's like, okay, how am I feeling today? 50%, or what do I need to say now? I need to address the love language. Sometimes it's more an intuition, would you say, or a feeling? You can't be too in your logical head with this stuff.
No, but I just think it's a tool. I just think that is a tool. Yeah. So it's a way in which you can communicate that without, because you might not be able to find the words. You might not be able to name how you're feeling and just say, you know what, I don't know why, but I feel like I'm about 40% right now.
Yeah.
And I just think it sort of takes the need for that kind of to identify or to give it a name, that it's just an easy way to say, and then the other person go. And I think they're just mostly happy that you shared that you can actually be honest to say, my energy's low today. And that's okay. And that's okay. So we know as human beings, we move away from pain and towards pleasure. So bearing in mind that you had this divorce and it was traumatic and painful and everything else, we've talked about it. Are you then taking that into this relationship to say, actually, I don't want to move towards that situation again, that I want to move towards the pleasure, and I'm very much aware of not moving back into that painful situation that I've experienced previously?
Yeah, probably, if I'm being honest, probably not consciously, but I did repeat a similar relationship after my marriage. Okay. Same type of personality.
Was that similar dynamic. Personality? Okay.
Yeah, similar personality dynamics after. So I probably hadn't evolved as a person as much at that point. And then I fell into sort of old patterns again. And then with my wife now, it's a different dynamic. It just feels I'm different. I'm a different person.
Was there a palpable change that you felt in yourself prior to meeting your wife? Was there a noticeable change?
I think so, yeah. Probably like a level of, they say with guys, maybe they mature slightly later sometimes. Maybe I had become different, whereas my first wife was 3-4 years older than me. My new wife is 11 years younger, so it's a completely different dynamic, so. But yeah, it was a bit of a story. I'll give you the quick lowdown on the meeting. So it was COVID. I'd been single for a while. COVID had kicked off. I think it was in a September.
I find that very hard to believe, but keep going.
I know it is hard to believe. Maybe it was COVID that did it. And then it was around about the September time potentially. And you're just, well, you don't know on the apps, but you go on these apps, you're playing around. It just becomes like a little swipe game, that type of thing. And you have parameters on there. So I'm in London. I would put the parameters normally on London, but this is a new app. Never really used it before. So I connect with a beautiful lady. I'm thinking, okay, fantastic. They will say, right, shall we meet for, go for a walk, face masks, that type of thing. And then she goes, oh, I'm based in Moscow. I was going, oh, right. Why is what's happened here with the whole whatever it's called, the radius settings. I was like,
yeah.
Okay, interesting. This is interesting. I don't really know anything about Russia. Never thought about it. Never been there. All I'm thinking is, I don't know. I don't know why I just think military when I come to Russia, but I don't now. But back then I did. So I thought to myself, okay, it's COVID. Let me just book a flight. So I just said, right, let's do a first date. So about 2 weeks after we first met, I booked a flight to Moscow, and I just said, right, I'm gonna come to Moscow. I'm interested to see what it's like. We'll meet up, have dinner. I'll spend a few days. If you're around, we'll catch up, go to a few museums and stuff. So yeah, literally, it was about 3 weeks after connecting on this app. I was in Red Square. Me and my old pal Putin, high-fiving. I was there. The old Russian hat, freezing cold. And, how can you predict? Some things in life you just are hard to predict, aren't they? I couldn't have predicted 5 years previous from that I would be in Moscow with a beautiful young lady. And then ever since then, we sort of fell in love instantly, and we've been together for 4.5 years and married. So yeah, we got married in Armenia, and it was nice little love story there, James, to be honest.
Yeah, I was slightly dropping off to sleep there, mate, in the middle of that, but I came back at the end.
But who knows what's around the corner? That's the thing about love. It's you think to yourself, when it kicks off, if you're single, that is. But again, going back right to the beginning, we've got a lot of young guys now who are low on testosterone, on porn too much, isolated, lonely. Maybe I know women say that these are men out there who are misogynistic and they're saying rude things to them, but I would say most men in general are really not that confident. To speak to a woman in public, you are going to be probably 1 in 1,000. So I would say men, in terms of confidence and approaching women, we probably need to go out, and these guys need to talk to women more. Not less. Speak to the woman in the coffee shop. Ask her a question. But people do think you're crazy. Probably it depends.
Well, it's situation appropriate, isn't it? It seems like that if you're in a club, that it's kind of like the scene is set, and that is somewhere that people congregate to meet each other and possibly to hook up, whatever that looks like. But walking up to somebody on the street, it's like, well, this isn't the place to do that. And why are you talking to me right now? But it's like, well, it's like in a supermarket. If you see someone in a supermarket, you go up and talk to them. Where is appropriate? Is that just a perception thing? Is that something that we are projecting onto that and saying, well, actually, it is entirely appropriate. If you see somebody, you smile, you get a smile back. What do you do with that? Depending on the situation you're in?
Yeah.
And it's that sort of second guessing of going, well, is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate? How do I act right now? And I think there's that level of uncertainty as to not knowing how it's going to be received. Not that, I remember as a kid growing up, it was like, oh my God, it was seen the most terrifying thing to go and talk to a girl then. And, we were not bombarded with what we're bombarded with now. Yeah. But in a peer group, if, your mate had done it, it'd be like, well, if Pete can do it, then I can do it. And, there's nothing particularly special about him. And you go around in a group, but it just seemed more kind of organic. I don't know. It just seemed to sort of happen. There was no major sort of strategy, or you just go, would you want to go out with me? And it was all quite kind of innocent.
Different, wasn't it? Yeah.
Now it's this kind of, are we exclusive? Are we not exclusive?
Yeah.
And there's a whole language around it that I didn't grow up with and I'm not used to. And your generation would be different. Again, you kind of fall somewhere in between. That there has to be this kind of ebb and flow and this formulaic element around it that, you know, we've been doing this for millennia, that there's a physical biological attraction.
Yeah.
The procreation has to be there. There has to, and the way in which you know, a woman will choose a man based on their ability to not only create a particularly
security,
healthy offspring and security, and secure the you know, the growth of that child, dependability, you know, whether that be strength, whether that be, you know, monetary or whatever situational things going on. So all of these little kind of nuances are there playing in the background, but you kind of seem to be fighting against it. It's like, well, I can't, and then you end up almost paralyzed. That's how it feels.
And this whole sexual harassment stuff, I know it goes on, 100% it goes on, but it's sort of poisoned the water a little bit for a lot of these young guys when it comes to approaching women. I think they're probably
it's individual high profile cases that are tarring, you know, a lot of young guys and women equally with that brush. And again, we've talked about the prevalence of violence against women, violence against men, and that is there. That's the reality of life. But it is not everybody.
No, it's not. It's not the majority. It's not the majority. That's the thing.
But everybody everybody is now under the label and the auspices of those incidences, and there, you know, there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
But there are people that are absolutely innocent of that and have no desire to do any of that. But we're now operating under that system as a result of isolated instances.
Yeah.
And it's then the perspective that we get on that in terms of how that impacts everybody. It's a very difficult one to navigate because the fear is there, the way in which it's purported is there, or reported, I should say, is there.
Yeah, I grew up with pretty much with a load of black guys, and they just got ridiculous confidence. And they're normally like physical specimens as well. So they was, you know, they had confidence in a few different areas, to be honest, especially in the showers at football. But I mean,
did you talk to them about their kind of upbringing and their relationships with their fathers? Because you know,
quite a few absent fathers. The Nigerians were more together, I would say. Maybe some less on the Caribbean families, a bit more family breakdown in that area. But yeah, not everybody had dads and leaders and fathers like that. I think there's more of just this street confidence. Probably it can go too far, I would say. So probably not the healthiest thing in the world. I wouldn't say it's like chivalry type of confidence, but it wasn't a fear of you know, speaking to women. There was none of it. Was the opposite. They would go up and sing to her, that type of thing. It was literally the opposite. So that's what I was surrounded with, which is a completely different vibe from people, you know, being scared to approach a woman. But this is different times, and different times in a different place in a big city like London. So I guess it just depends on the context. But yeah, overall, it's a fascinating conversation, James. I think we'll leave it there. And thank you for your expertise.
It's just my opinion, mate. It's just my opinion.
Well, you know, it's who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. You try your best, don't you? You try your best.
Only try your best, my man.
Yeah, you give the love. You try to learn, grow, improve. That's pretty much all you can do.
Be curious, be open.
Yeah, don't try to fit in any stereotypes. And life goes in phases. You know, sometimes you're ripping each other's clothes off, and sometimes, you know, you're stressed, and you know it's not that time of life. Sometimes it's the kids' life. Sometimes it's the focus on the work. Sometimes it's, you know, people get sick or they get ill, don't they? And you have to look after each other in a different way. There's many different forms of love, romance, connection. So just be aware that you don't have to fit any stereotypes, and it's different from. Do you, James?
Do you?
Well done, man. Good job. I think you did well with that one, James. Excellent.
Well, bless you.
Riffed it well. Right, take care, Daniel, who's still watching, and take care to everybody else.
Yeah.
See you later.
Love to all.
Bye bye.
Bye.